Have you ever found yourself, in a spot where you made a super quick decision, like a gut feeling,
Oh, absolutely.
and it worked out perfectly? Or maybe the other side of that coin,
Mm.
where you were totally sure about something, rock solid, and then, bam, it just
Yeah.
fell apart.
Yeah, and you realize later your quick take missed something vital.
Exactly. We've all been there. Our minds, they're honestly amazing at these snap judgments, right? Building stories from almost nothing, getting us through the day super fast.
Incredibly efficient.
But that efficiency, well, it comes with these built-in blind spots, mental shortcuts that sometimes lead us down some pretty surprising roads, costly ones even.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're kicking off a really foundational deep dive. We're looking into the architecture of how we think. We'll be pulling insights from some major work in psychology, business, finance.
Just real heavy hitters.
Right. And our mission, starting this whole multi-part journey, is to explore the mechanics, the hidden gears that control how we see things, how we decide, how we act. And we're starting with Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize-winning stuff, Thinking Fast and Slow.
A landmark book.
Totally. We're going to unpack this amazing interplay between our intuitive side and our more deliberate thinking. The goal is really to give you a clearer map of your own mental machinery. Think of it like an owner's manual for your brain, maybe.
I like that. Yeah, because it's not just what we think. It's fundamentally about how we think. Kahneman's work, it gives us this incredible lens, doesn't it? To dissect both the brilliant things our minds do and, well, the consistent ways we mess up.
Right.
Understanding these systems, it's like gaining a new level of self-awareness.
Absolutely. And as we start peeling back these layers, looking at how we process things, we're going to get into stuff like hindsight bias, how that totally messes with our view of the past.
Oh, yeah. The I knew it all along effect. Yeah.
Exactly. And loss aversion, that powerful pull that affects our money, our choices.
Big time.
And, digging into this whole psychology of the success idea,
Brilliant.
finding a clearer path to just better judgment in everything, really.
It promises to be quite the exploration, really getting into the nuts and bolts of our own thinking.
Couldn't agree more. It's going to be fascinating. The architecture of judgment, our mental shortcuts and biases. Okay, so let's dive right in. Our first big topic, the architecture of judgment, our mental shortcuts and biases. The absolute foundation here, the core of Kahneman's model, really, is this idea that our minds run on two different systems. They work together, but they're distinct.
Right. System 1 and System 2.
Exactly. System 1 is the fast one. It's intuitive, emotional, automatic. It's your gut feeling, recognizing your friend's face instantly, slamming on the brakes before you even consciously think about it. It's always on, running in the background.
Effortless, basically.
Then there's System 2. That's the slow one. Deliberate, logical. It takes effort. This is what you use for like a tough math problem, figuring out where to go to college, carefully weighing pros and cons for a big decision.
The heavy lifting department.
Right. And the really profound insight here is that System 1, it's incredibly efficient, like we said, but it's also, and this is a direct quote from Kahneman, designed to jump to conclusions from little evidence. And it is not designed to know the size of its jumps.
Ooh, that last part is crucial. It doesn't know how big a leap it's taking.
Exactly. This idea of our minds just leaping, often without realizing how big the leap is. That feels incredibly relevant to just everyday life, doesn't it?
Profoundly relevant. And what's fascinating, really, is how much of our confidence, that feeling of certainty comes from how coherent the story feels, even if the actual evidence is, well, pretty thin.
Coherent, not necessarily accurate.
Precisely. It's not just speed. It's about what Kahneman calls cognitive ease. System 1 loves information that's easy to process, familiar, consistent. So it builds these narratives really fast, using mental shortcuts heuristics to make sense of things.
Filling in the gaps.
Right, often glossing over important missing pieces. And the result is this compelling story that feels right, gives you that strong sense of confidence, even if the facts don't really back it up. Which raises a huge question for all of us, doesn't it? How do we actually tell the difference between real understanding and just a neat story?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Kahneman talks about this idea of confidence by coherence. Our subjective confidence, how sure we feel, often just reflects how tidy the story is that System 1 and sometimes System 2, kind of lazily signing off on it, has put together.
So it's less about the evidence itself.
Much less. It's more about how well the pieces fit together in a way that seems believable. Like, the book says the amount of evidence and its quality do not count for much because poor evidence can make a very good story.
Wow. Poor evidence can make a good story.
Think about a great novel, right? Its power isn't always its factual accuracy. It's the internal consistency, the emotional pull. Our minds work kind of like that. They prioritize that coherence. So how often do you find yourself totally convinced by something, some narrative, only to look back later and realize, the actual facts there were pretty shaky? Maybe just an anecdote or two?
Mm, guilty as charged.
That immediate, often uncritical acceptance, that's system one doing its job, building a coherent world for us super efficiently. But not always an accurate one. It's a survival tool, incredibly useful, but yeah, full of potential pitfalls.
It's almost, yeah, unsettling. Thinking how much of what we know might be built on pretty flimsy foundations.
Yeah.
And that tendency, that System 1 knack for building these compelling but maybe misleading stories.
Yeah.
That leads us perfectly into our next bit. The illusions of understanding, hindsight and outcome bias.
Yes. Hindsight, 2020 vision, right?
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting, especially looking back. Think about business postmortems or historical analyses, or even just thinking about your own past choices. How often do we fall into this trap? Things that seemed totally up in the air at the time suddenly look obvious. Oh, of course that was going to happen.
Right. And if we connect that to the bigger picture, like you said, this hindsight bias can be incredibly damaging. Think about strategic planning or performance reviews, or even just trying to learn from mistakes.
How so?
Well, Kahneman puts it so clearly. The mistake appears obvious, but it's just hindsight you could not have known in advance. We basically rewrite history in our heads, making events seem way more predictable than they actually were.
We erase the uncertainty.
Exactly. We forget what it felt like not to know. And this makes us think we knew more than we did, or maybe worse, that other people should have known better. It's a real cognitive distortion.
And that ties into the narrative fallacy too, right?
Absolutely. That's our deep, innate urge to create these neat, coherent stories out of events that are often complex, messy, maybe even random. We crave patterns and causes, even if they aren't really there. We oversimplify.
So, like, when someone explains a huge success by pointing to just one thing.
Precisely. Kahneman gives an example. He's learning too much from this success story, which is too tidy. He has fallen for a narrative fallacy. It means seeing someone boil down a complex success involving luck, timing, countless decisions, hard work to one simple, elegant factor.
Like it was all planned from day one.
Right, and those tidy stories. System 1 loves them, they feel good, but they can be dangerously misleading if you try to apply that simplistic lesson to the future.
Okay, so that's hindsight and narrative fallacy. What about outcome bias? How's that different?
Outcome bias takes it a step further. It's when we judge the quality of a decision based only on how it turned out, not based on the information or the context that was available when the decision was made.
Got it. So if a stock tanks, we automatically think management must be terrible.
Exactly, like the example. She has no evidence for saying that the firm is badly managed. All she knows is that its stock has gone down. This is an outcome bias. And Kahneman adds it's partly hindsight and partly the halo effect.
A halo effect.
Yeah, where one strong positive or negative thing like the stock price crashing spills over and colors our view of everything else like management skill, even if they're unrelated. We do this constantly, overlooking the real risks and uncertainties that existed at the time the decision was made.
And judging purely by results without looking at the process or the info available then.
Yeah.
That sounds like a terrible way to learn.
It's a critical flaw. It prevents real learning and totally messes up accountability. You see this illustrated really well with the story of the Ford Edsel from Business Adventures.
Oh, the classic failure.
Total flop in the market. Huge failure. But the executives involved, by and large, they did not just land on their feet, they landed in clover. Their careers mostly weren't hurt. Some even got promoted later. Yeah. So if you look back and judge those execs just by their career outcomes, you might mistakenly think, well, maybe their decisions around the Edsel weren't that bad for them. See how the outcome bias for their careers distorts the view of the actual product decision? It makes learning from the real mistakes much harder if the people involved don't face consequences.
That's wild. What about the Walmart example?
Right, Sam Walton himself talked about this. He said, when people want to simplify the Walmart story, they sum up the secret. Oh, they went into small towns when nobody else would.
The narrative fallacy again.
Classic case. Yes, that was part of their strategy, but it reduces this incredibly complex picture, relentless cost control, amazing logistics, unique culture, employee incentives down to one simple soundbite.
Makes it easy to digest, but you lose the real lesson.
Exactly. You miss the intricate web of factors that actually drove their success. You can't replicate it from that simple story.
Okay, and Seagate with the hard drives.
Ah, yes, from The Innovator's Dilemma. This is a brilliant example of how outcome bias can be unfair. Looking back, people slam Seagate execs for missing the boat on the smaller 2.5-inch drives needed for laptops.
Because they stuck with the bigger 3.5-inch ones.
Right. But at the time, their decisions were totally rational based on their existing market. Their big desktop computer customers wanted more capacity, better performance things the 3.5-inch drives delivered. That's who paid the bills.
They were serving their main customers.
Exactly. The book makes this point. Managers need resources, yes, but then they need to ask, does the organization have the processes and values to succeed? Seagate had resources, but their processes and values were optimized for their current profitable customers. Those strengths became weaknesses when faced with a disruptive tech that initially served a smaller, less profitable market.
So judging them harshly just because laptops took off later is classic outcome bias.
Totally. You have to judge the decision based on the context and information then. Otherwise, you misattribute genius to luck or incompetence to shifts you couldn't predict. You learn nothing useful for the future.
That's such a crucial point about how even successful processes can blind you. Makes you realize how hard genuine learning from experience is when our brains just want that neat, tidy story. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The power of perception. Loss aversion and inertia. This is another huge one from Kahneman, right? System one again.
Absolutely fundamental. Loss aversion.
He says, for many people, the prospect of winning $200 just offsets the prospect of losing $100. That doesn't sound right mathematically. It feels lopsided.
It is profoundly lopsided. This asymmetry, the pain of a loss feeling much stronger, roughly twice as strong, as the pleasure of an equivalent gain is key to understanding so much human behavior, especially in finance, economics, negotiations.
So it raises the question, doesn't it? How much of what we decide, especially with money, is driven more by avoiding the pain of losing than by seeking the pleasure of winning?
A huge amount. The research is crystal clear. Losses loom larger than gains. Think about that experiment with the coffee mugs and chocolate bars.
Right, remind me of that one.
Okay, so half the students get a free mug, the other half get a free chocolate bar. Both cost about the same. People like them equally beforehand. But then they're offered the chance to trade mug for chocolate or vice versa.
And what happened?
Almost nobody traded. People almost universally stuck with what they had. They hated the idea of losing the thing they already possessed, even to get something else they liked just as much.
Wow. Just owning it for a minute makes you not want to give it up.
Exactly. That reluctance to incur a loss of what's yours kicks in almost instantly.
It's incredible, that feeling of ownership, that reluctance. I know I've done that. Held onto a stock that's tanking or stuck with a project way too long just because I didn't want to accept the loss, Sunk cost fallacy, maybe?
It's deeply related. That powerful, often irrational attachment. And Kahneman connects loss aversion directly to inertia. He says, loss aversion helps produce inertia, meaning a strong desire to stick with your...
Okay, and then the really stark example, The Big Short. Subprime mortgages.
Oh, yeah. A chilling example of resisting the idea of loss. Remember when Morgan Stanley asked Higler's team to stress test their huge mortgage bets for bigger losses? Like 10% instead of their usual 6%?
What was the reaction?
They were angered and disturbed. Their actual response was essentially, that state of the world can't happen. They just couldn't psychologically accept the possibility of such a big loss.
Even though the data suggested it could.
Even when data pointed that way. Their System 1 just rejected the painful possibility. And of course, the actual losses hit, 40% eventually? Way beyond what they could even conceive of. That emotional dismissal of a potentially devastating outcome is classic loss aversion leading to dangerous overconfidence. System 2 completely failed to override System 1's comforting but ultimately disastrous denial.
Wow. It's not just that we dislike losing.
It's that the visceral pain of potential loss traps us. We hold on to bad investments, failing projects, maybe even bad relationships, because cutting ties means facing and acknowledging that loss. Understanding this helps us see the need for System 2 strategies like pre-commitments, setting stop losses, having kill criteria for projects, ways to force ourselves to override that powerful but often irrational System 1 impulse.
That can't happen. Mindset is just, chilling, thinking about the real-world impact. It really shows how deep these biases run, even for supposed experts. Like their emotional brain just hijack the whole operation.
It really does seem that way sometimes. But then you have a deliberate System 2 antidote offered in books like The intelligent investor.
Benjamin Graham, value investing.
Right. Graham says the intelligent investor dreads a bull market since it makes stocks more costly to buy. And conversely, you should welcome a bear market since it puts stocks back on sale. Assuming you have cash, of course.
That's completely counterintuitive to how most people feel.
Totally. It directly fights that emotional loss aversion that makes people panic sell in a downturn and chase stocks higher in a bull market out of FOMO, fear of missing out. Graham demands a rational, disciplined, System 2 approach that deliberately ignores those powerful System 1 emotional swings.
The entrepreneurs face a version of this, right? Like with bureaucracy.
Yeah, Howard Schultz talks about this in Pour Your Heart Into It. He mentions that introducing systems and bureaucracies can be painful because they feel like the opposite of the freedom and creativity that attracted you to starting a business.
Losing the startup vibe.
Exactly. It's a psychological resistance to losing that perceived freedom, that agility, that informal culture, even when you know intellectually using System 2 that systems are vital for growth and stability. The comfort of the familiar, the fear of losing the soul of the early days creates inertia. It's another facet of loss aversion holding you back. 2. The pitfalls of intuition. When fast thinking goes wrong.
Okay, so we've seen how System 1 shortcuts, like loss aversion, can trip us up. Let's dig deeper into the pitfalls of intuition when fast thinking goes wrong. Because System 1, while brilliant for speed, definitely has weaknesses. Overconfidence seems like a big one, and maybe seeking validation for what we want to be true.
Oh, absolutely. Overconfidence is a major byproduct of System 1's fluency. Think about fast-growing companies. Often, as Seven Powers points out, in the explosive growth stage, companies will exhibit quite attractive financials.
Things look great on paper.
Exactly. The future looks bright, long-term success seems assured, but this very success can breed a dangerous, false positive feeling. If the company hasn't built real sustainable power, a genuine strategic advantage, then competitive arbitrage will catch up as soon as growth slows, and the favorable early returns will prove fleeting.
So System 1, see the good numbers, feels confident.
And builds the story of inevitable victory. System 2 often gets lazy and doesn't ask the tough questions about why things are going well and whether it's sustainable. Is it real power or just a good market tide lifting all boats?
So what does this mean for strategy? It sounds like that quick-thinking mind, plus maybe some ego, plus wanting good news. It leads straight into traps. Helmer, the author of Seven Powers, says he cringes every time a CEO says they're pleased when a big competitor enters their market because it validates the market.
Oof. Yeah, that's not strategy, that's wishful thinking. It's overconfidence, maybe seeking validation for your own intuitive belief instead of doing a hard-nosed System 2 strategic assessment of the threat.
Like Apple's welcome IBM ad back in the day.
Classic example. In hindsight, almost tragic. They saw IBM entering the PC market as validation, maybe even a bit arrogantly, but they didn't grasp, as Helmer puts it, the nature of power attainment in the takeoff stage. They didn't see it was really a race for relative scale, and there can only be one winner. System 1 saw validation. System 2 failed to see the existential threat.
Yikes. Okay, so the big picture takeaway here
is how crucial it is to push beyond those easy, surface-level validations. We need to engage in what Howard Marks calls second-level thinking in the most important thing illuminated.
Second-level thinking.
It's not just thinking differently, it's thinking more deeply, considering the full chain of consequences. What happens first? Then what happens because of that? And how will others react? And what happens then? It's System 2 really digging in, questioning System 1's simple answers.
Like layers of an onion.
Exactly, peeling back the layers. We also see this intuitive game playing out in fundraising, right?
Yeah, the bluffing tactic.
Right, from Art of the Start 2.0. Telling potential investors, several investors are already in due diligence. Guy Kawasaki says this might work in times of irrational exuberance when everyone's System 1 is running hot, driven by FOMO and social proof.
But not always.
No way. During other times, it is a laughable tactic. Because the sharp investor, using System 2, is thinking, okay, so you pitched a few others, and they just haven't said no yet. It shows how context totally flips the script on these intuitive bluffs. Your own bias about how great your company is gets punctured pretty quick when the market demands real System 2 scrutiny.
That's a fantastic illustration of how context matters. What feels like a smart move in one situation is just silly in another.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. The trap of apparent success and misplaced priorities. Seems like our fast thinking often grabs onto what's easy to see, easy to measure, or what confirms what we hope is true instead of looking deeper.
Definitely. Theodore Levitt's classic article, Marketing Myopia, nails this. He draws that critical line between selling and marketing.
What's the difference again?
Selling, he says, is preoccupied with the seller's need to convert the product into cash. It's focused on the seller's immediate needs. Marketing, on the other hand, is about satisfying the needs of the customer.
Outward focus versus inward focus.
Precisely. Companies that get overly oriented towards production, just pushing out whatever they make and focusing hard on selling it, they fall into this myopia trap. They prioritize the short-term cash from the sale over the long-term value of understanding and serving customer needs. System 1 loves the immediate cash register ring, but System 2 fails to ask the crucial strategic questions about sustainable customer value. They mistake the transaction for the relationship.
And we see that narrow focus elsewhere too, right? Like those diaries.
Oh yeah, that anecdote from Business Adventures is telling. These businessmen compulsively writing in little notebooks they called diaries. But what were they writing? Not deep thoughts or observations. Only what everything cost.
Just the numbers.
Just the costs. It reveals this almost obsessive focus on the immediate, tangible, easily quantifiable stuff. Costs matter, obviously, but if that's all you're tracking, you can completely miss the bigger strategic picture, the why behind the numbers, the qualitative stuff that really drives long-term success. The urgent, trackable data crowds out the important, complex, less tangible factors.
That focus on immediate metrics sounds like a slippery slope to something like Enron.
It's the perfect, if extreme, segue. The smartest guys in the room paints a horrifying picture. Auditors working with Enron execs discussing strategies to minimize losses and take liabilities off the balance sheet.
Cooking the books, basically.
Way beyond cooking. It was a deliberate systemic effort where the desire to present a specific picture, constant success, no losses, completely overrode financial reality, logic, ethics. It was enabled by this shambolic thinking, as one person involved described it, like pretending a duck that's really a dog.
Wow.
During the good times, the bull market, Jeff Skilling's whole conceit that Enron was this sophisticated logistics or energy trading company, not just a house of cards, could kind of hold up. But as soon as people started asking hard questions, looked closer, it became one more reason to doubt him. Which brings us back to that crucial question. Are we genuinely trying to find out what's true, or are we just trying to reinforce what we want to believe?
Like that quote from Principles.
Exactly, Ray Dalio. To be effective, you must not let your need to be right be more important than your need to find out what's true. When System 1 desperately wants a certain outcome, it gets incredibly creative at shaping the narrative, bending facts. And if System 2 doesn't step in forcefully to challenge it, well, you get Enron. The allure of apparent success is powerful. It can blind you.
That's a really sobering thought. That need to be right or look right, blocking the path to truth. Which leads us right into the impact of blind spots and emotional responses. Because even the smartest among us have these gaps, right? Areas where our thinking just isn't as objective or complete as we think. System 1 operating in the shadows.
Absolutely. Ray Dalio hits this hard in Principles. He says, you and everyone else also have blind spots, areas where your way of thinking prevents you from seeing things accurately. It's like our senses, just as we have different ranges for hearing or seeing colors, we have different ranges for seeing and understanding things.
So some people see the big picture but miss details, others the reverse.
Exactly. Some are linear thinkers, others more lateral. System 1 creates these default ways of seeing, these mental filters. And unless we make a deliberate System 2 effort through self-awareness and seeking feedback, we're just unaware of what we consistently fail to see.
And emotions just pour fuel on that fire, right?
Huge amplifier. Stephen Covey nails this in The 7 Habits regarding personal relationships. He says, if our sense of emotional worth comes primarily from our marriage, then we become highly dependent upon that relationship. We become vulnerable to the moods and feelings of our spouse.
Your happiness depends entirely on them.
Right. It shows how powerful emotions core to System 1 can hijack our objective assessment, even in deeply personal areas. And it's the same in professional life. Our emotional security, our fears, our desires, they create powerful blind spots in how we perceive situations and make judgments.
That's so relatable, how your mood just colors everything. And Liar's Poker has that crazy story, the prank.
Oh, the cheeseburger thief.
Yeah.
Maddie. Yeah, it's darkly funny, but also really revealing.
Remind us, he steals a cheeseburger.
Yeah, a single cheeseburger from the Salomon Brothers cafeteria. And the top brass decide to play this incredibly elaborate prank, making him think the SEC is involved, corporate theft, his career is over.
And he believed it.
Totally. He figured his career was ruined, thought the theft would haunt him forever. The sheer fear, the social pressure, it completely warped his reality. System 1 went into full-blown panic, and System 2 couldn't break through that terrifying, coherent, but totally false narrative.
Until everyone started laughing.
Right. The reveal that everyone was laughing at him just underscores how potent that emotional hijacking and social pressure can be, even on supposedly rational Wall Street traders.
Wow. Okay, and extreme ownership. How do blind spots in emotions show up in combat?
It offers a different angle. It describes this sometimes nonchalant attitude from Iraqi soldiers and even some SEALs about imminent danger despite constant attacks.
It's like they get used to it.
Exactly. It could be habituation, desensitization, almost a System 1 coping mechanism, normalizing danger to manage constant stress. But that normalization can become a blind spot, right? Contrasting with the leader's more deliberate, System 2 awareness of the patterns and the real threat.
So System 1 creates a blind spot for survival.
Possibly. And then, conversely, you see immediate emotional reactions shaping mindset. Like when one boat crew leader gets assigned an easy group for training, he's elated, feels justice was finally being done. Another gets a difficult group and feels determination.
Instant reaction based on perceived luck.
Right. That fast-thinking emotional response, good luck, bad luck, immediately frames their whole approach. Unless System 2 deliberately steps in to analyze and reframe, that initial emotional reaction can dictate everything: resilience, effort, the outcome. 3. Cultivating deliberate thought, strategies for better decisions.
Okay, we've really unpacked the ways our fast thinking can lead us astray, the shortcuts, the biases, the emotional traps. Let's pivot now. How do we fight back? How do we start cultivating deliberate thought? Strategies for better decisions. Because it's not just about dodging pitfalls, is it? It's about actively building better ways forward, anticipating change, being intentional.
Precisely, host. This is where we consciously engage System 2. 7 Powers introduces this concept of the mantra. It stresses the need for continuing power in significant markets, and you achieve that through ongoing layering on of different sources of power as a business progresses.
So it's not about finding one trick, it's continuous building.
Exactly. It demands proactive, deep, deliberate System 2 thinking that goes way beyond just looking at this quarter's results. It's about understanding the shifting competitive landscape and constantly building sustainable advantages.
And the book gives a framework for that, the 7 Powers themselves.
Right. They're presented as, essentially, the only strategies available for sustainable competitive advantage, which implies this finite, analyzable framework. It's not guesswork, it's deliberate choice. Helmer is emphatic. If you do not have at least one of these for each competitor, you cannot satisfy the mantra, and hence are lacking a viable strategy.
That forces a structured analysis. No room for just hoping for the best.
It pushes back hard against System 1's easy narratives and optimism. It demands rigorous, objective System 2 assessment of where you truly stand competitively.
That structured thinking feels key, and the ultimate business library echoes this need for deliberate, maybe even unreasonable thinking, doesn't it? With discontinuous change.
Yes, Charles Handy's point about discontinuous change is so relevant. He says that the path through time, with society slowly, naturally, improving on a steady course, is a thing of the past. The blinkers have to be removed. He uses that powerful image of the Peruvian Indians who couldn't even see the invader ships because they had no concept for them. They just saw a freak of the weather.
Because it didn't fit their System 1 categories.
Exactly. It shows the danger of relying on past patterns when something truly new arrives. System 1 simply couldn't process it.
So how do organizations, or even us as individuals, foster that kind of thinking? The cone that sees the ships, so to speak.
Well, Handy argues that the way people think will have to change fundamentally. He notes, we are all prisoners of our past. It's hard to think differently, but he points out that the real breakthroughs often came from unreasonable thinkers. Freud, Marx, Einstein, people who embraced discontinuous or upside-down thinking.
So we need to consciously override System 1's love for the familiar?
And force System 2 to grapple with radically different possibilities. A great example of this in action is Jeff Bezos at Amazon, described in The Everything Store.
When they were losing money early on.
Yeah, analysts were skeptical. Bezos' response wasn't panic, it was deliberate. There's only one way out. Invent our way out. That was a proactive System 2 commitment to innovation. He consciously framed Amazon as a tech company, not just a retailer.
Making bold moves,
Right.
like the $9.99 ebooks.
Right. That wasn't just a gut feeling, though he called it that. It was a deliberate System 2 choice. understanding the market, playing a long game for ecosystem dominance, even if it meant short-term losses that would make System 1 scream. He was using System 2 to build the future, intentionally going against short-term intuition.
These aren't just small adjustments, are they? It's about creating a whole environment, personally or organizationally, that favors that deliberate thinking, pushing back against System 1's defaults. Let's get into some structured approaches to problem solving and management.
Yeah, these systematic System 2 approaches are vital for turning vision into reality. Blue Ocean strategy, for instance, highlights execution as a huge hurdle, especially when you're trying to do something new. And managing your boss gives a super practical example, dealing with vague bosses.
How do you get clarity from them?
Instead of relying on fuzzy conversations, the effective manager drafts a detailed memo covering key aspects of their work, sends it for approval, and then discusses it. Why? To deliberately surface virtually all of the boss's expectations, it forces System 2 engagement on both sides, reducing the space for System 1 assumptions and misinterpretations.
Makes sense. Structure forces clarity. What about deep work?
Cal Newport talks about the process-centric message. Basically, communicate everything needed, what's done, the result, next steps, all at once.
Closing the loop.
Exactly. This closes the loop, reduces mental clutter, and frees up brain power for actual deep thinking. It stops that reactive System 1 ping-pong of chasing information and allows for focused System 2 work.
And how we communicate matters too, right? Not just what.
Big time. Radical candor stresses choosing the right channel for important feedback or guidance. In-person, video, phone are way better than email or text.
Yep.
Because, as the book says, it's actually faster to walk down the hall or pick up the phone to avoid the misunderstandings that breed in less nuanced channels like email. Email gives System 1 too much room to misinterpret tone. Taking notes in meetings, projecting them, checking for understanding. These are all deliberate System 2 strategies for shared clarity.
Slowing down to ensure accuracy.
Right. And the new one-minute manager approach with its quick goals and praisings works because the feedback happens in small doses. You catch the mistake early on.
Instead of saving it all up.
Exactly. It avoids gunny sacking, storing up complaints until you explode, which is pure System 1 emotional reaction. The one-minute way is more deliberate, less reactive, constantly nudging performance, rather than waiting for big, messy, often counterproductive blow-ups.
This really shifts things, doesn't it? From just how we think to what guides that thinking, our values, our ethics. Let's touch on ethical and values-based decision-making. This feels like an area where System 2 has to be in charge.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is how these deep ethical questions demand a level of deliberation that just bypasses System 1's quick reactions. They force engagement with complexity, trade-off, long-term stuff. Strategic flexibility discusses true right decisions.
Right. Meaning?
Situations where you have competing moral claims and you can't just say one is right and one is wrong. Like, do you build a factory near the port for economic benefits and jobs, or inland to protect a fragile ecosystem? Both sides have valid ethical arguments.
Not a simple good versus bad that System 1 can handle.
Not at all. It requires deep, deliberate System 2 ethical reasoning, weighing complex impacts on different stakeholders over time. It's way beyond intuition.
And 7 Habits talks about personal mission statements.
Yes, drawing on Viktor Frankl's idea that everyone has his own specific vocation or mission. Developing a personal mission statement, Covey argues, is a profound act of personal leadership, of proactivity.
Being deliberate about your own life's direction.
Exactly. Consciously aligning your life with correct principles, universal values, rather than just reacting to moods or circumstances, fickle forces. It's a sustained System 2 effort. Ongoing learning, commitment, action. Defining your deepest values provides this internal compass, guiding you through System 1's potential impulses or short-sightedness. It lets you respond with integrity, not just react. 4. Navigating complex realities, understanding external influences on our thinking.
Okay, last big section. We've looked inside our heads at System 1 and 2. Now let's look outward. Navigating complex realities. Understanding external influences on our thinking. Because our internal cognitive machinery doesn't operate in a bubble, right? It's constantly interacting with the world, markets, people, information.
That's such a critical point. We're not islands. Machiavelli, way back in The Prince, had this, well, maybe cynical but sharp take on public perception.
What did you see?
He wrote that the vulgar are always taken by what a thing seems to be and by what comes of it. Basically, most people are swayed by appearances and immediate outcomes. And in the world, there are only the vulgar, he says, meaning the majority, for the few find a place there only when the many have no ground to rest on.
So surface appearances, System 1's quick take, drives the crowd.
That's the implication. Whether it's politics or markets, the compelling surface narrative often wins over deeper System 2 analysis for the majority.
It really makes you think about the stock market then. It's not just rational actors making logical choices.
Not even close. The intelligent investor drives this home. Graham says every investor must expect to see them fluctuate in value. The market, his Mr. Market persona, often reflects collective mood swings, fear, greed, not just fundamentals.
Human fallibility playing out on a grand scale.
Exactly. Graham points to two hurdles for investors: human fallibility and the nature of his competition. It's a reminder that markets are awash in individual and collective biases, which makes independent, deliberate System 2 thinking even more crucial and harder.
So the big question for you, listening, is how do you keep your cool, your deliberate System 2 perspective when the crowd is going wild with irrational exuberance or panic?
It's tough. System 1 is wired for social proof, for herd behavior. Going against the grain takes real effort. And external signals, like price itself, can powerfully influence our System 1. Positioning talks about how high price signals luxury or quality.
Like the expensive perfume example.
There is only one joy, the costliest perfume in the world. That high price instantly triggers System 1 associations: quality, exclusivity, desirability. No System 2 analysis needed about the actual ingredients or value. Price becomes a powerful, intuitive shortcut.
So understanding our thinking isn't just self-help. It's vital for businesses trying to reach us, understand us, maybe even influence us. Let's talk about the strategic impact of information and influence.
And here, the interplay between our psychology and bigger systemic factors gets really interesting. Milton Friedman, in Capitalism and Freedom, makes a structural point. Exchange is truly voluntary only when nearly equivalent alternatives exist. Monopoly means no alternatives, limiting freedom.
So market structure itself shapes our choices, not just our biases.
Right. Our options are often constrained externally, but businesses are getting much smarter about using our internal biases, our System 1 tendencies, to influence us. Do you want to keep your customers forever? Contrasts old mass marketing, guessing tastes, with true one-to-one marketing.
Which involves dialogue.
Yes. Conducts a dialogue with each customer, uses the increasingly more detailed feedback to truly customize offerings. That's a deliberate System 2 approach by the company to understand and influence individual customer behavior, moving beyond averages.
Getting specific, and sometimes maybe creepily specific, like Target predicting pregnancies.
Yeah, the power of habit detailed how Target figured out which customers were pregnant, even without being told, just by analyzing buying patterns with sophisticated data analysis.
Wow.
It shows this incredible predictive power based on understanding behavior, habits driven by System 1. And it can shape markets and choices subtly, often without our explicit awareness. Our habits leave digital breadcrumbs that System 2, in the form of algorithms, can follow.
That leads to some pretty profound territory.
It really does. And connecting this to the bigger picture, scholars like Shoshana Zuboff talk about surveillance capitalism, how companies use instrumentarian power to shape our behavior while evading our awareness. They're leveraging our System 1 tendencies, habits, biases, desire for ease to nudge us, often without us realizing it.
That's settling.
It underscores why understanding these mechanisms is so critical, not just for our own decisions, but to grasp our place in a world increasingly designed to guide our choices. It raises huge questions about autonomy in the digital age. How much is our System 1 being hacked?
A massive question. Okay, finally, let's bring it back to organizations with the human element in organizational performance. Because even with data and bias awareness, people making judgments, collaborating, that's still central, right?
Absolutely core. Built to Last talks about visionary companies needing to translate the intangible elements, core ideology, drive for progress, into tangible actions, systems. That's the second layer.
Making the vision real.
It requires sustained, deliberate System 2 effort to embed that vision into daily operations, fighting against System 1's drift towards easier habits or short-term thinking. It's making the abstract concrete.
And then there's that evocative quote from Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, about the character's emotional connection to a building, a single, wordless emotion. But she knew it was a sum totaled by an adding machine of the mind, the final sum of a long progression of thoughts.
So deep emotion is compressed logic.
It suggests this dynamic interplay, the intense System 1 feeling being the rapid output of a complex underlying System 2 understanding built over time. Emotion and logic deeply intertwined.
And Drucker, on effective executives.
Peter Drucker, in The Effective Executive, stresses that executives need to make their contribution count not just downwards with people they control, but also sideways with peers and upwards with superiors.
Influence without authority.
Exactly. It demands huge social intelligence, deliberate communication, navigating complex organizational dynamics. That's conscious system 2, work, building relationships, influencing, collaborating effectively, overcoming system 1's focus on just the immediate hierarchy. It's about understanding and interacting with other people's system 1 and system 2.
That's a great point. It all comes back to people. So the big question maybe is, how do we create environments, personal, organizational, that maximize both individual cognitive strengths and collective wisdom? Environments where System 2 is encouraged to lead, but we also acknowledge and account for System 1's constant presence.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Building systems that leverage the best of both.
Well, today we've definitely laid some serious groundwork. A deep dive into human judgment, really focusing on that powerful dance between our fast, intuitive System 1 and our slow, deliberate System 2. We've seen how System 1 leaps to conclusions, how hindsight and outcome bias mess with our understanding, how loss aversion pulls at our choices, often without us realizing.
Those automatic processes are powerful.
But crucially, we've also explored how deliberate thought System 2, stepping up through structured approaches, strategic foresight, ethical grounding, and just being aware of external influences can guide us toward better, more resilient decisions. In life, in business, everywhere.
And it's clear, isn't it? Understanding these two systems, System 1, the storyteller, System 2, the editor, maybe, that's the first, absolutely crucial step. Knowing when to trust that gut feeling and when to hit pause, engage the effortful analysis, that's a skill you can definitely develop.
Absolutely. Practice and self-awareness. So if you go about your day, maybe think about this. If System 1 is that brilliant, super-fast storyteller, spinning convincing tales from tiny threads, and System 2 is the careful, critical editor, how often do you really let the editor check the story before you buy it completely?
Before you accept it as fact.
Right. And maybe more profoundly, what stories then are you living by right now, making decisions based on that haven't actually had that critical System 2 review?
Food for thought.
Definitely. Our journey into understanding our cognitive architecture, it's really just beginning. Stay curious, keep questioning those first impressions, and keep diving deep with us.